Welcome back to In Your Money. We're discussing healthcare this evening. My guest is Dr. Ron Whelan. If you'd like to email me, my email address will appear on the screen, info@anchorcapital.co.za. So let's deal with those two things. When is a PMB not a PMB, and when is chronic not chronic?
It's a very important question.
Are we going to be the rest of the morning?
It is a complex topic.
Yeah.
So PMBs are prescribed minimum benefits, and that is the range of conditions that medical schemes are legally obligated to cover. So that's the one lens, and there are a range of conditions included in the prescribed minimum benefits. The second part that's important for your viewers to understand is that while you might have a condition that is regarded as a prescribed minimum benefit, the level of care around that may be PMB level of care or may not be PMB level of care. And what I mean by that is we often get queries specifically around cancer, for example. So if we take a cancer like multiple myeloma, would be regarded as a PMB. But some of the high-end treatments for multiple myeloma fall outside of PMB level of care. There's a particular drug called Darzalex that costs many million rands a year for us to fund for the treatment of multiple myeloma, but that sits beyond a PMB level of care. Also within PMBs, PMBs are typically provided by a range of designated service providers, and so long as you're going to a designated service provider, the level of care will be covered in full. If you're going to a service provider who's not a designated service provider, the PMB may not be covered in full. So there are some nuances around navigating your prescribed minimum benefit cover.
Tell me, you talk about network doctors. Are you continuing to try and get more and more doctors to join the pool?
Absolutely, absolutely. We already have a very broad set of network doctors, both in the general practitioner space as well as in the specialist space. We also have network hospitals. And what we seek to do around the network arrangements is we seek to give our members certainty around payment, and we seek to give our doctors certainty around payment. So if you're part of a network arrangement, you will know exactly what will be covered, what will not be covered, and you'll have certainty around that payment with, in most instances, no co-pays on that. The second important thing around networks is, as Discovery Health, we work with our network providers to negotiate the best possible rates for our members, and we pass those savings through directly to members through lower contributions who are on specific network plans. It's important for viewers to understand that if we've done a deal with a specific hospital group on a particular network plan, we've negotiated a lower fee, that manifests as a lower contribution on a network plan.
Well, I want to get to the emails, but we'll deal next time I have you on the program. When is chronic not chronic? But let's go. Jake in Spring says, how will national health be funded and by whom? And is it likely, and this is it, that we as pensioners are going to lose our medical rebate?
Oh, it's such an important question, Bryan. I think that the first thing to say around national health insurance is that it is going to take a long time to get implemented. This is a very big and complex project that will take many years, if not decades, to implement. And there are three main challenges to the implementation of NHI. The first challenge is a funding challenge. So the National Department of Health has indicated we'll need at least an additional 200 billion rand per annum to fund the NHI. Now, for us to raise 200 billion rand, the only way we can find that funding is through tax. And we'd have to increase taxes, personal income taxes, by somewhere around 31%, or we'd have to increase VAT from 15% to 21.5%, or we'd have to increase payroll taxes like the unemployment insurance fund taxes by somewhere around tenfold. I think you would agree with me, Bryan, none of those seem tenable or viable. Those are significant tax increases of a very narrow tax base. In South Africa, we have somewhere around 6.5 million registered taxpayers, but only somewhere between 3.5 million and 4 million actual taxpayers. And we need to raise that 200 billion rand off a narrow tax base.
Ron, any idea how much is paid, given back to taxpayers in terms of the medical rebate?
Yeah, it's an important question. So the medical scheme tax credits are a credit on your annual tax return. They are somewhere in the order of 360 rand per principal member per month, alongside the dependents as well. they're paid on an annual basis. If you take all of the tax credit payments in any given year, as somewhere in the order of 30 to 35 billion rand.
So it's not the 200 billion you're talking about.
It's a small fraction of the 200 billion rand that would be required. So that doesn't solve it. I think it's also important to point out that, Bryan, that the tax credits subsidize lower income earners to the same amount. So 364 Rand is applicable to the lower income earners, and that's obviously a much bigger proportion of their monthly medical scheme contributions. And we wouldn't want that to fall away. It's a very effective mechanism for funding medical scheme cover for lower income earners. I think the second implementation challenge in the context of NHI, Bryan, is it is a massive overhaul of the overall healthcare system in South Africa. So we'd need to centralize the provincial health budgets. We'd need to build new financial and accounting systems. We'd need to upgrade all of the public facilities across the country. This is a big project that will take many years. And then finally, I think it's likely that we are going to see a number of legal challenges against the NHI bill. There are already two challenges that have been launched by the Board of Healthcare Funders together with Solidarity, the trade union. And as you know, these legal challenges will take many years to unfold in our courts. So a long way off around the implementation of NHI. And I want to reassure your viewers that there will be no change to medical schemes for the foreseeable future and for several years to come. So don't give up your medical scheme cover, and don't feel like your medical scheme cover is under any threat in the short to medium term.
Well, you've just gazumped Robert in Hout Bay's question. He says, the DA were totally against the NHI and were getting their case together to fight it. Now that they're part of the government of national unity, have you any idea what's going to happen next? Well, I know this is a difficult one because, but just any discussion back at the ranch?
Well, I think the first thing to note is that the composition of our government has changed. The composition of the National Assembly has changed. And we know that there are some elements within the NHI Act that will need to be amended. And those amendments would need to go through the National Assembly and voted on by the National Assembly. So I think that's the first change in the dynamic in the implementation of NHI. Where the different political parties stand and where their policies stand coming out of the election is yet to be seen, and we'll have to see how that plays out.
Okay, and I think this is a very critical question from Anne in Belito. She says, I've run into financial difficulty and I'm not a well person. I cannot afford to keep up my medical aid payments, and I've been a member of the medical scheme for 25 years. Surely I would be entitled to pause in contributions until I have a job again without losing membership benefits. That is really a sad set of these people have been retrenched, and the employer was paying half and the employee was paying the other half. Now they can't afford it. There's no moratorium, is there?
Unfortunately not, Bryan. And this is a horrible situation. I'm sorry to hear about this, and I think the options here are to have a conversation with your financial advisor, look for an affordable option across the different plan series. As I mentioned earlier on, as Discovery Health and Discovery Health Medical Scheme, we aim to design our plans so that there's a plan for every pocket. There is a natural threshold on plan contributions given the prescribed minimum benefits, which we obviously cannot go below, but I would encourage her to speak to her financial advisor and see whether there is a plan that she could potentially afford.
Ron, and what about low-cost schemes? What's the delay?
It's a very good question, Bryan. So what you're referring to is the low-cost benefit options. And the low-cost benefit options is a proposed regulatory framework which would have a lower threshold on prescribed minimum benefits in order to reduce the cost of medical scheme cover. This is work that has been done by the Council for Medical Schemes now over several years. We've participated and supported that work as Discovery Health. The low-cost benefit option framework is sitting on the Minister's desk at the moment. And perhaps now with the change of Minister, we may see some movement around the low-cost benefit framework. And we certainly are hopeful as Discovery Health Medical Scheme and Discovery Health to see the low-cost benefit options coming to the fore. So they will reduce contributions. What they will also do, Bryan, it's important for you to note this, is that we estimate there's somewhere between 6 to 8 million non-medical scheme members who would be able to come into the medical scheme market as a result of the low-cost benefit option framework. So it's a very efficient way of providing access to high-quality private healthcare for a broader cross-section of our population.
Well, I know that our ministers watch this program regularly every Monday night. Minister of Health, please get that bill, get that onto your desk. First piece of paper, please, let's get it going. It'll benefit so many South Africans. Ron said anything between 6 to 8 million. Last email of the evening, Mervyn in Greenside says, what implications will NHI have on private hospitals? Will they continue to operate as before? And are there any changes expected in their functioning and their role within the healthcare system? I think you've answered that. A long way to go, and we'll have to see there. Then I'm going to sneak one more in. Shirley in Glen Hazel, she says, who's dragging the heels over passing legislation about new cost schemes, particularly for our domestic workers? Sneak one more in. Julian in Hillcrest, I'm 49 years old. I joined the company 2 years ago and was forced to join the medical aid. I've just resigned from the company and I've been informed that I continue as a single member without loading, whereas if I had joined on my own without being a member, I would have been loaded. Is that correct?
Well, I mean, it's good to hear that he's on medical scheme cover, and that he's now part of the system, and he would certainly be able to continue with that membership on a similar basis to what he was a member before.
So someone older than 35 who joins as an individual is going to pay a loading. Someone who joined the company older than that age gets automatic underwriting, and then when they leave, they can automatically convert.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, many financial advisors may also be licensed to advise on healthcare. I believe that a future healthcare plan is a lot more complicated than just including it in general advice. The cost of medical aid is likely to double in the next 7 to 8 years and quadruple in the next 14 to 16 years. Quite frightening for individuals in retirement and even those currently in their 50s. My advice is to have the discussion with not just a broker who's licensed, but an expert who can help map the course into the future. Ron, thank you for joining me this evening. It's important to note that our program is to provide information and should not be construed as advice. Next week's program will be focusing on short-term insurance, and if you need to get hold of me, my details will appear on the screen. Thank you for watching, and good night.